And then there are the two wide receivers you have for Michigan, Roman Wilson, Cornelius Johnson. Now, Wilson's a smaller guy, but more still a playmaker. So right there, you've got two matchups. You got the two corners for Alabama, and you got these two receivers for Michigan. And Roman Wilson, you have him almost, I guess you have him just about where you have Burton. So what's the difference between those two kids?
Love Roman Wilson, 5'10", 188. He's going to run a sub 4.4, and I'm going to make a prediction right now. He's going to finish with the best 3-cone / short shuttle combo at the combine this year. He might even start approaching some records there with how quick, how sudden, how explosive he is. I still don't think we know how good this kid can be because of who he played for. They're very run heavy. They have a quality quarterback, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, but you don't see a receiver from this program get featured like you do at an Ohio State.
Yep.
And when I watch Roman Wilson run routes, catch the football, and compete, he reminds me of Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, with how fluid and how explosive and how easily he can get open. Not the widest catch radius. I think that's going to be a big kind of dent in his grade. Is the actual size metric. That's his lowest point. I'm looking at my grade on him right now, and the size is what's going to knock him down a little bit. This dude, though, his contested catch rate when he's got a defender on him is over 50%, which is so uncommon for a player at that size. And I think that 69% of his catches have gone for first down or a touchdown. There's just more in this kid than I think everyone thinks. And he's a top 10 receiver on my board, and I don't think anyone has him there yet.
Well, let's just put it this way. If he was 6'3", 220, he'd be a top 5 pick.
Yeah. Marvin Harrison better watch out if that's the case.
So anyway, that just shows you how good he is. But again, it just like we were kind of saying with Burton, same thing with Wilson. Wherever he goes, keep an eye on him, because if he ends up with a really smart quarterback and a system that is and a coaching staff that's going to utilize him, he could have an instant impact as a rookie. So,
absolutely.
All right, talk about McCarthy now. And, the thing with JJ, as a Michigan fan, I have, I'm still kind of waiting, and maybe it'll never come. But I think he has another gear. Now, maybe he has to wait for the NFL to get, it's sort of like CJ Stroud. There were a lot of fans at Ohio State, as we talked about it last year. After the Georgia playoff game, they were like, well, where was that guy? Where was that guy, against Michigan? Where was that guy, when we needed him, for his entire tenure at Ohio State? He waits till his last game. So that's the thing. Sometimes, and I think McCarthy is probably going to be that type of guy. I think the only way Michigan is going to win a national championship this year is he has to elevate his game. He's got to play better than he's ever played before, because like I said, he has it in him. Question is whether or not he is going to be able to do it at this level. And I think if he does end up as a second-round draft pick, which is where you have him pretty much slotted, I mean, to me, that's like, I'm not saying he's going to turn into Jalen Hurst, because Hurst is a bigger guy, but I think that he's going to be very similar, because he's got athletic ability, so he's going to be able to run the ball a little bit if he needs to. But I think he's going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL for 15 years. It's just a matter of how good he's going to be. So I think he's probably going to be one of the best bargain quarterbacks in the draft. Once again, where is his ceiling, and will it ever come?
Are you completely sold that he'll go to the league next year?
Not 100% from what I've been hearing lately. Let's just put it this way. If he wins the national championship, yes.
Yeah, okay.
But then again, I think the same thing is with Harbaugh. I think everybody kind of believes that he's going to go. If he wins a national championship, he's definitely gone. I think it's one of those things. I think, but yeah, I still believe he's more than likely going to go pro. I understand the reasoning of maybe you should come back and be a top 5 pick with all these other guys ahead of you. But like I was just saying, I just don't know whether or not he'll be that type of, whether he's going to wow everybody if he comes back another year where they just go, oh, is it going to be one of those things where it's, okay, you're going to be a top 5 pick next year just because there's no other quarterbacks around now, or you've made yourself a top 5 pick because you came back and you became a better quarterback. Right. That second part is the part I just don't see happening in college.
Understood. My grade is very to be determined on him, and I'm hoping that Michigan plays 2 more games. I hope they win this one against Alabama. I want to see this kid play 2 more times.
Yes.
And I want to see the game be put on his shoulders. this is what I love. I'm going to go into what I love about McCarthy at first and why I could see him ending with a first-round grade. I think pressure versus no pressure, nothing changes with him. He doesn't get any worse when he's got action at his feet, when he's got guys coming at his face after a big hit, after a couple of sacks. His completion percentage versus pressure and non-pressure they're both top 10 in the country. Big throw percentage with pressure, without pressure, both top 5%. I mean, we're talking about a guy and that is one of the traits that we see with young quarterbacks. When they start getting pressure, which you're going to at some point in the NFL, especially if you're drafted by a crappy team, all right, how do you respond? Do you rise to the occasion? Or are you like most young quarterbacks, you falter, you fail? And I think McCarthy's got that swagger in him, the toughness, the mental toughness that I'm okay if I have pressure around me, I'm going to make things happen. But I want to see it. I want to see it more. The body type, I'm a little concerned there. Mm-hmm. He's right around 200 pounds. I'm sure he can bulk up, as they always say, right? You know, body type to me is a big deal for quarterback. You know, when I'm looking at guys in the NFL that can't stay healthy or just, you know, you're not sure if they're going to get up from a big hit, McCarthy, he's that guy to me. And I get a little concerned there. I also have seen a lot of repeat mistakes out of him. These interceptions over the middle. Bowling Green, Maryland, those two tapes were not good for him. Overall, game-wise, fine. But there were mistakes that I think are going to be issues in the NFL. You know, the interceptions over the middle, not seeing guys in the middle of the field. I don't know if he sees everything. That's another reason why I was thinking maybe he'll go back for another year and just develop the mental side of the game, get another year bigger, and you no longer have Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels that you're competing with. So if I'm advising him and we're still seeing what we saw out of McCarthy all year, I'm saying you go back next year and try to be the number one quarterback in 2025.
Yeah, and again, like you said, a lot's going to depend on whether or not he can win a national championship and look, win a playoff game first. I mean, that's important. You know, it's nice to get to the playoffs, but Michigan fans are not going to be satisfied, especially if he doesn't play to his ability. Because let's keep in mind, he did not play very well in the TCU game.
And that's against TCU. You know, we're not talking about a big-time defense here. I think that this defense that he's going to be matched up against could make a case it's the best defense he sees all year, just in terms of the progression of the year.
Sure.
This Alabama defense, it's a great test, especially for him. You know, the pass defense of Alabama, it's going to be very tough to beat Nick Saban, who just had a month of preparation for you.
Oh, yeah.
So he has a lot to gain. He has probably as much to gain as any player that's playing in these bowl games.
And we'll be talking more about him, obviously, especially if he does declare. Moving on over to defense for Michigan. And see, to me, this is really, without question, we could say what we want about McCarthy's got to do this or they got to do that. But defensively, this is how Michigan has to win the game because Alabama, and I mentioned this on the Alabama versus Florida State debate, that I'm not sure many people understand that all season long, and they knew it going into the season, and it happened, and it was an issue all year. Alabama, their offensive line, big issues. They gave up. They were bottom 10th overall in college football in the nation in sacks allowed, which is just unheard of at Alabama. And with this Michigan defense, and it starts up front, and you've got Chris Jenkins there, sitting there at a middle round guy. What about overall Jenkins? He's your top guy. So it was what you're saying that some of the other players that are not that are there are either not capable of being drafted, or most of the other guys are probably guys that are just too young and they're coming back.
Are you talking about up front?
Up front.
Yeah, I mean, their top guy is Mason Graham, who's a sophomore, so he won't be coming out. And Chris Jenkins, you know, day 2 pick, a starting caliber guy. I don't see first round in him. Some might, though. We can get into him. But in regard to your question, the other guys on the roster, they're most of these guys either are not draft eligible. They have, I think, 4 sophomores, true sophomores that are contributing. But their older guys are better role players, kind of better college players than pro prospects, I would say. Okay. I am a Peyton McGregor fan. I'm not sure if he's going to come out or not. I know he has another year of eligibility. I like Jalen Harrell. But Jenkins is the guy. But what makes this defense so good, they are so disciplined. I mean, they do everything correctly. Eye discipline. The defensive line really helps prevent blockers from getting to the second level. They're very cohesive unit, and that is they have NFL caliber talent on all three levels. But when all these guys are playing together like the way they do every single week, it makes them look unstoppable against certain teams. And you're right, the Alabama offensive line, they're going to have their hands full, not because of talent necessarily, because the group just plays really well together and they're very well coached.
Let's talk about, before we move on to the other game and the other two teams, let's talk about one of my favorite players, and he showcased his ability, really, I think, for the first time nationally on the big stage, winning MVP of the Big Ten championship game, being Mike Sanderstill. Because we talked about him last year because we thought he was a possibility he was going to go to the draft, but he didn't. And here he comes back again, and he's just gotten better. And he is clearly my number one slot corner in the draft. Tell me where you have him as number one as slot corner. But
if you're,
throw in his leadership, playmaking skills, the fact that he can play outside if you need him to, but inside, especially nowadays with the slot receivers there are, I think he's going to be a weapon in the NFL right away.
5'9", 182, 30.5-inch arms, 74.5-inch wingspan. Immediately that puts him down a tier. But then you watch also a former wide receiver.
That's right.
Punt return, special teamer. But then you have to watch the tape from the past 2 years, and it's hard not to love this guy. It's actually hard to not say, hey, he could be a first-round pick. I don't think he's going to get to that level, but you have to kind of separate kind of fandom and NFL evaluation. There's just all those little metrics that go against him. But like you said, he will be an impact player at the next level. We had a similar corner to him, Clark Phillips from Utah last year, that's playing for the Falcons this year. Similar mold in terms of skill set, body type, production. But I think Sanderstill has got more versatility to his game. He is a legitimate, credible impact run defender. And that's what you want out of that slot position, especially now. I mean, teams are attacking nickel and dime defense with the run game now. So these extra DBs that come onto the field, they got to be able to contribute something to that run defense. And I have no fear, no hesitation saying that he's going to impact a defense at the next level with his run defense. 5 interceptions. He's got 2 pick sixes, inside, outside threat. He is one of my favorite football players in this draft. I'm not going to overrate him because of that. But I'll tell you what, if your favorite team drafts this kid, get ready for a new fan favorite, because you're going to love even just the personality that he brings to the table. There are certain players that bring energy to a defense, and I'm telling you, some teams do this better than others, is they look at the tools, the intangibles, the scheme fit. What do they do for the personality of your defense?
Yep.
And this is a personality guy.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that you have, like, I don't know how everybody's board is, but I would think that everybody's board has sort of like a list of players that are like, these are your top guys. These are your can't miss guys. These are your guys that you just, whether you need this position filled or not, these are your top guys, the guys that check every box, including, of course, leadership and all that kind of stuff. Maybe you have, who knows, 10 or 15 guys in that one group. He's going to be in that group. So,
absolutely. No doubt.
Just a matter of whether or not, again, like I said, do you need it? Is it overkill? Or is someone willing to draft him a little earlier, which I think is going to happen, because I think they're going to realize I got to get him earlier or else he's not going to be available.